got lots to talk about today, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, check out this awesome UFO captured over the skies or over the houses of Virginia. This is just a great capture of what looks to me like something really anomalous. I don't think you could say that was a drone or, a shooting star or anything. That looks pretty sweet. I like it. Look how fast it goes. It moves a lot like, the Beaver, Utah UFO and some other UFOs that are these low-flying, fast-moving objects. But the Beaver, Utah UFO wasn't lit up like this, and it was in daytime. So do they turn on their lights at night? Does this guy want to be seen? Is that why he's flying over rooftops? Or is he just on his way somewhere and he just doesn't care? Or let me know if you think it's a seagull. Let me know in the comments below. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio is making waves in the documentary Age of Disclosure. Really great documentary. I hope you've had time to see that. But of course, he is the highest ranking person in that documentary, talking about really interesting things. Here in this interview with Sean Hannity, he talks about how, there may have been some selective editing, but yeah, what he says in that documentary is true.
But the fundamental comments, I haven't seen it, but the clips I've seen and people have shown me are fundamentally true. And that is, there are things, we know this has been documented. There have been things that fly over the airspace, restricted airspace, be it where we're conducting military exercises or the like, and everyone in the government says they're not ours. And so what I worry most about, just me personally, is that some adversary, another country, for example, has developed some asymmetric capability for surveillance or the like that we just are not prepared for. We're looking for missiles and fighter jets, and they're coming at us with drones and balloons. Yeah. I remember, when NORAD turned on the radars and started looking for balloons, all of a sudden they spotted a bunch of balloons flying overhead. 90% of them were innocent, things. A couple of them were Chinese. And so, but we never look for balloons because our radars aren't trained for that. So that really was the point I was trying to drive at. I can't comment on the rest of the documentary. It has, as I said, claims from people that were former admirals, naval fighters, people with high clearances in government. Some of them are pretty spectacular claims. I'm not calling these people liars. I don't have independent knowledge that what they're saying is true. Mm-hmm. The one observation I had is we had people that did very important jobs in the U.S. government who are saying these things. So we have people with very high jobs in the U.S. government that are either A, liars, B, crazy, or C, telling the truth. And two of those three options are not good. But I don't know.
Yeah, so he said that for many years. That's nothing new. But yeah, basically standing by what he said in Age of Disclosure and, putting a little distance, now that he's the Secretary of State, between him and some of these, beliefs that might appear to the uninitiated to be fringy. But yeah, is still standing up for them and saying, it's either one of these three options, right? Either they're crazy, liars, or they're telling the truth. And of course, he seems to believe that they're telling the truth, and that's why he's willing to talk about it. At least he is willing to talk about it, even if he does kind of hedge into the whole China thing, or the mystery drones could be Chinese. He kind of hints at that, which is annoying. The mystery drones don't seem to be Chinese. We don't know what the hell they are. They're shutting down airports in China just like they are here. That doesn't really pass muster, but it's what he's going to say. Now, Gary Nolan, who's also in Age of Disclosure, goes a little further, and he says, the beings, if they exist, they may have been here for a long time.
I conclude that there's definitely something here. But I think the more interesting conclusion is if something is here, it's likely been here longer than humans have even been civilized. So it really opens the question, and actually it's something that I think Charles Fort actually said, is, Earth is probably somebody else's property.
Well,
yeah, that's interesting. I hope it's not somebody else's property, but hey, you never know. Speaking of things that are ancient, from Gonzalo Chavez, the Inkari Institute's new website update released images of writing discovered with the tridactyl corpses, with the Nazca mummies. Some of the symbols are also found on the Bugosphere. At least one of them. At least one of the symbols on these artifacts is indeed found on the Bugosphere, although I have been debating that with somebody online for a little while. But yeah, these are, writing, that are not Nazca writing that were found with the beings. And one of these symbols on this rock right here, this H kind of thing, closely matches the H on the Bugosphere. Now, on the H on the Bugosphere actually has a little upward lift right there that you can't see, but basically it's the same symbol. Now, the interpreter that Jaime Maussan brought on described the symbol, this Proto-Sanskrit symbol, whatever, or Proto-Vedic, or whatever symbol it is. I'm not good with languages. I can barely speak English. But yeah, they described it as a modifier, not necessarily a distinct character in itself, but as a modifier of the character that came before. So very, very interesting that this modifier or character or whatever it is does appear on the Bugosphere and also with the Nazca beings. Does that hint at some sort of shared culture or language or understanding? I don't know, but also from that part of the world where that language comes from, or at least as we know it today, although obviously if the Bugosphere is using that language, and if that writing dates to the time the sphere seems to have been made, 12,500 years ago, that was long before the Indo-Aryans or the Indians were using that language. So maybe they were given that language by somebody else. Who knows? But those people did ultimately come to place an importance on the third eye, which apparently the Nazca beings also had. And the Bugosphere responded to a Hindu mantra. Obviously, there's some connections there, some really interesting connections, and I've been doing some more research on that. It gets weird, with the Nagas and everything. But let's move on. All right. Getting back to the age of disclosure and people talking about the age of disclosure in the broader issue of the phenomenon. Here's Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet talking again on Fox, who has been surprisingly on this in a way that other news stations have not been.
BS. This can't be true. You understand where they're coming from, that there's nothing to show besides these videos and the testimony, but for them, they haven't seen it in person.
Sure.
To confirm it.
100%, Brett. Yeah, we want that smoking gun. We want the evidence, the data. And I mean, the most I have knowledge of, though, that was convincing to me is I saw the classified videos that have since been declassified, taken by Navy F-18 aircraft.
In 2015, Gallaudet was commanding personnel during a naval exercise off the East Coast when he received an email warning of near mid-air collisions. Attached was a video of the suspected threat.
Wow, look at it fly!
Gallaudet says the next day the email disappeared from his account. The Pentagon would eventually declassify the video more than 5 years later.
The Navy is sitting on a trove of UAP video data that they're not releasing.
That video and others...
Yeah, they are. They're hiding information from us. It's so weird, that the Navy's sitting on this information. I mean, I guess it shouldn't be surprising, but it's interesting that the Air Force is able to go into, onto Navy ships and so on and take stuff from them, take data and video from them. So although the Navy is suppressing this stuff, are they doing it on behalf of the Air Force? Is the Air Force the top dog in the military hierarchy on UFOs? I mean, that would make total sense, but it's interesting to try to put the pieces together. I hope that at some point we do get all of those videos and information, whether that's sonar or whatever that the Navy is sitting on. They're sitting on a whole lot. It feels like things are building, like a pressure cooker. They can't keep the lid on this forever, I don't think. I think things are going to start coming out. I do. But we'll see. We'll see. People are talking about Trump. We'll see what happens. David Grush is hinting that something might be happening. Meanwhile, people are talking about the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases. And this is, almost a 7-minute video, but he's driving along and the idea is that he's going into a DUMB. So is this actual video of a DUMB? Or is this just some large underground facility, some completely legit underground facility, of which I'm sure there's a lot. But yeah, really interesting that we might be looking at a DUMB here. I do think that they exist. I think there's probably underground, railroad systems or whatever that connect them. And this could be where the breakaway civilization, as Richard Dolan calls it, properly exists in its true form. Although, as Dan Farah, the director of Age of Disclosure says, these guys are probably sitting next to us at the coffee shop. They're going to the same grocery store as we are. They come home to their wives and kids. They don't necessarily live in the DUMBs, although probably a few of them do. Really, really interesting. And of course, they're probably not the only things at the DUMBs. There seem to be beings there as well. But let me know what you guys think about that. Meanwhile, another great capture, only a couple seconds long, from Paul Oglesby. So is that a satellite or is that an actual UFO? It's moving. It's hard to tell if that's the movement of the camera or if that's an anomalous object. And then we have the second faster moving object streaking right by it. So I'm guessing that first one is anomalous. Really great capture. He gets so many of these. I highly recommend following him on Twitter because he's just got a whole bunch. Let's see what else we got. Kind of a slow news day. Tom Thompson says retired NASA engineer John Schuessler, I nailed that, has highlighted a little known data point in the long history of the Aurora, Texas UFO legend. An actual piece of metal that appears to defy the technology of its reported time period. In 1973, a metallic fragment recovered near Aurora was sent to an aerospace materials laboratory that routinely analyzes aircraft and spacecraft components. Testing showed the sample to be roughly 95% aluminum with about 5% iron, a ratio that is highly atypical. Under normal conditions, aluminum and iron do not blend well this way, and producing such a composition would require sophisticated refining processes that simply did not exist in
In this case.
Yeah, so let me know what you think about the Aurora case. I go back and forth on Aurora as evidence comes and goes, but I do think they were covering up UFOs back to then. I came across an article from about 1906, I believe, in New England. And this was before I had the channel. I've lost the article. I've looked for it before. I've used AI to try to find that article, and I can't. But if you find it, let me know. But it is about an exotic airship crash in a small town, I think in New England, around 1906. And this is the local newspaper that was reporting this, which, you wouldn't think is any big deal, right? They had hot air balloons back then. So, likely you would think that's what they were talking about. Except that the very next day, they retracted the story. Why would they retract that? In hot air balloon crashes. Why would they retract that, right? Kind of weird. Kind of makes me think they were covering up UFO crashes and retrieving them back in the early 1900s. Would not surprise me at all if they were doing that back in the late 1800s. Or even potentially earlier, that there have been, some sort of secret society or secret societies, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, that have been, dealing with this stuff and covering it up, hiding it from the public and using it for their own ends forever. At least that's where my mind goes. Let me know where your research has taken you and what you believe about all of that. Meanwhile, because it is kind of a slow news day, I'll wrap it up since I'm thinking about the Nagas in the Ubaid culture. I'm going to end it with a reptilian. This is what a king cobra looks like when he drinks. I don't know why, but I find this really fascinating. Look at that. That was weird. So Thirsty Cobra, guys, let me know what you think about this Thirsty King Cobra and everything else covered today in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. Love to see you guys there. If you want to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, grab a t-shirt, grab a coffee mug in the merch store, become a channel member. Channel members are rock stars. And I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.